Today we will discuss about algae. What is algae and its characteristics? Now, algae are the most primitive plants on this earth's surface and appeared 3.5 billions of years ago. They are chlorophyll bearing photosynthetic organisms and built up oxygen on earth's atmosphere. Algae are mostly aquatic plants and they are placed at the base of the primary food web of aquatic ecosystem. It's an well diversified group of plants showing diversification in their morphology, in their cell structure, in their habitat, in their storage food matter, in reproductive behavior and also in life cycle pattern. Some of the members of algae are prokaryotic and known as cyanobacteria, and they are very close to bacteria. And the other groups of algae, the eukaryotic one, are very similar to higher plants, especially the green algae or chlorophyta. Now, these well diversified groups share some characters which are very primitive and some characters are advanced. So, recently on the basis of ultrastructure and molecular structure, it is believed that algae are actually an artificial assemblages of plants. Some are very primitive, some are advanced. So, as a definition of algae, we can define algae as an most primitive plants evolved polyphyletically and include both prokaryotic and eukaryotic organisms. And algal plant body is thalloid, that means their plant body is not differentiated into roots, stems and leaves like higher plants, and they have naked reproductive structures. It is believed that algae evolved polyphyletically because some of the algal members are similar to bacteria and having the genomic pattern similar to bacteria known as cyanobacteria, whereas the members of green algae are similar to higher plants and their genomic pattern is similar to bryophyte or other groups of plants. So, on the basis of this diversification in molecular characters, algae are considered as polyphyletic group of plants. That means they evolved polyphyletically. I have already told that algae is a well diversified groups and they exhibit diversification in several aspects. If we discuss about the diversification in morphology, then we will see that in this algal division we will have unicellular form to huge macroscopic thallus. In unicellular form, the some algae are motile, that means the cells are provided with flagella and can move from one place to other with that, and other form is non-motile without flagella. Now, colonial form of algae is very important. A large number of colonial forms exist in nature. In colonial form, actually the cell divide in different planes. When the cell division is in irregular pattern, then one irregular colony is developed. But when this plane of cell division in regular pattern, then regular colony develops. When the plane of cell division in three direction right angle to each other, then we will get a cubical colony. Example of cubical colony is Eucapsis. Spherical colony are also present in algal kingdom. Sometimes these spherical colony are solid like Gliocystis, and sometimes hollow sphere of Volvox are present. In hollow sphere, the cells are arranged in one plane. The most prominent thallar structure of algae is its filamentous form. In filamentous form, the cell divide and form a uniseriate microscopic filament. The filaments are sometimes without any polarity. That means the filament is without any cellular differentiation. But in some filamentous form, there is a cellular differentiation into basal cell and apical cell. Sometimes there is also differentiation of reproductive cells in filamentous form. Now, filaments may be branched. Branched forms are available in Cladophora and Pithophora thallus, and sometimes the branched may be heterotrichous. That means there is a two prominent system, the prostate system and erect system in their thallus. The well differentiated branched form is present in Chara, the members of Charophyta, green algae, where the prostate system is reduced to root-like rhizoid and the erect system is composed of nodes and internodes and primary laterals. Now, for this morphological differentiation, Chara is considered as the progenitor of land plants. Now, besides these aquatic algae, terrestrial algae are also there. Trentipolia is one of the example of terrestrial algae which grow on tree bark. And Frischella, it was discovered by well-known algalogist Frisch, is present in terrestrial ecosystem which is considered as the progenitor of land plants. Now, algae are mostly aquatic, but some algae are terrestrial, already I have mentioned. Now, these aquatic algae may survive in freshwater region, in brackish water region and in marine region. Thousands of algae are actually present in freshwater region, including large rivers, lakes, pools, ponds, and even in small ditches and roadside puddles. Algae can exist everywhere where there is a moist atmosphere is there with sunlight. This sunlight may be scorching sunlight or diffused sunlight is also sometimes sufficient where algae can grow. Now, we can find algae even inside the flower vase, in aquarium, in water tank, or sometimes algal mats may develop inside the rain pipe or hydrant where very diffused light can penetrate. So, from this we can say that algae are well diversified in their habitat. Now, we know in our world there are 3 parts water and 1 part land, and these 3 parts are mainly occupied by vast oceans, and algae are well habituated to this marine habitat. Algae can constitute the marine flora including the phytoplanktonic form and huge seaweeds, and forming the kelp forest under the sea, which is the main source of oxygen in oceanic environment. Now, besides this aquatic habitat, algae can survive in some extreme environmental condition also. Some of the green algae like Chlamydomonas nivalis can cover the snow of the mountains, turning the snow red colored and is known as red snow. Sometimes algae can survive very well in blooming condition in hot spring where the temperature is more than 50 degrees centigrade in sulfur rich water. Mastigocladus laminosus is one of such example which can survive in hot spring. Some cyanobacteria like Crucoccidiopsis can survive in dry desert where there is really scarcity of water, but they can thrive well there. Now, like diversification in their morphology, algal thallus also show diversified nature in their pigment composition, and due to presence of different types of pigments in different composition, algal thallus show variation in the coloration. Chlorophyll A is the basic pigment of algal members. It is universally present in all members of algae. Together with this chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, C, D, carotenoids, xanthophylls and other pigments like phycobiliproteins are present in algal thallus, which makes the thallus of different colors. Now, chlorophyll B is the major pigment of Chlorophyta and Euglenophyta, turning this algal thallus into green color. Beta carotene is one of the important pigment of algal division and present in different ratio in different groups of algae. Hematochrome is one of the chemical form of beta carotene present in algae growing in extreme environmental condition. Like Chlamydomonas nivalis of red snow, they contain large amount of hematochrome pigment, and terrestrial algae also like Trentipolia, which are exposed to scorching sunlight. Xanthophyll is the oxidized form of carotenoids present in different groups of algae together with chlorophyll A, turning the algal thallus into different colors, especially the brown or golden brown color. Fucoxanthin is one of the example of xanthophyll present in large amount in Phaeophycean member, and the thallus color turned brown. And diatoxanthin and diadinoxanthin are the golden brown xanthophyll present in diatom thallus. Now, besides these fat soluble pigments, the phycobiliproteins are water soluble pigments which are either blue or red in color. The blue colored phycocyanobulin together with the protein part, apoprotein part, actually constitute the phycobiliproteins, which is the major pigment of members of cyanobacteria, turning their thallus blue-green in color. When phycoerythrin, the red color pigment, is present in major amount together with chlorophyll A, then the algal thallus will turn red, which is present in members of Rhodophyceae. Therefore, the different pigments when present in different proportion, then we get different colored thallus of algae, which is very rare in any other groups of plants. Now, primary photosynthetic product of algae is glucose, because we know that algae are photosynthetic organism. But there is again diversification in their synthesis of storage products. Starch is the reserve food matter of the green algae, which is very similar to higher plants. But besides starch, there are different polysaccharides like Floridian starch, Myxophycean starch, and laminarin, chrysolaminarin are present in different groups of algae, like Floridian starch is present in Rhodophyceae, Myxophycean starch is present in cyanobacteria, laminarin is present in brown algae, and chrysolaminarin is also present in Phaeophyta or brown algae, and paramylon starch is present in members of Euglenophyta. Some of these compound like this Floridian starch or Myxophycean starch, they are very similar to animal starch like compound rather than true starch of higher plants. Though we know that algae are photoautotrophic organisms, that means they have only photosynthetic process to assimilate the food, that means the organic carbon from the inorganic sources. We have different types of nutrition in this algal division. Some of the algae, especially the members of dinoflagellates, they show the heterotrophic nutrition. That means instead of photosynthesizing, they capture the prey and they get their nutrition from the animals or other organisms. Now, heterotrophic nutrition again may be obligate or facultative. That means the members of dinoflagellate may survive with both type of nutrition, autotrophic and heterotrophic. And there is mixotrophic nutrition also. In members of Euglenophyceae, they always share both type of nutrition, that means autotrophic and heterotrophic. So, this type of nutrition is known as mixotrophic nutrition. Now, in this division algae, we find several types of reproductive process. Algae are the heterogeneous group of plants showing diversification in reproduction also. Many members of algae, especially the cyanobacteria, only show the vegetative and asexual type of reproduction. Members of cyanobacteria and other members from different groups show vegetative mode of reproduction. In vegetative mode of reproduction, there are several processes like fragmentation. In fragmentation, the algal thallus actually breaks into several pieces. That means algal thallus has the capacity to grow into a new plants from any of the cell of their body. This is the most primitive character of the algal thallus. Now, in fission, the mother cell of the algal thallus divide into two daughter cells. This fission may be binary fission, that means the cell divide exactly to similar two daughter cells, or this division may be irregular, that means mother cell can divide to produce a large number of daughter cells without any sexual reproduction. A large number of asexual motile spores, zoospores, develop within the zoosporangium of algae, which liberate from the sporangium and develop into new plants, especially in favorable environmental condition. For this reason, we see a large number of algal population flourishing everywhere in rainy season. Now, besides these motile zoospores, huge numbers of non-motile spores are also available in algal kingdom. Aplanospores are one of the such non-motile spores which are thick-walled and they grow especially in unfavorable situation. In cyanobacteria, akinetes are spores which appear in unfavorable situation. They actually thrive the unfavorable condition, and in next favorable season, that means in next rainy season, they can germinate into a new plants. For these thick-walled spores or resting spores, algae can thrive the unfavorable environmental situation and they can grow in next favorable season after spending a long dormant period. Now, besides this asexual and vegetative reproduction, algae also show diversification in sexual reproduction. In sexual process, generally gametes are responsible for this reproduction. Now, these gametes may be isogamous or anisogamous. In isogamous type of sexual reproduction, gametes are similar both in morphology and in physiology. Sometimes the physiological anisogamy can also be seen where both the gametes are similar in structure, but one may be motile and one may be non-motile. In anisogamous type of sexual reproduction, gametes are dissimilar. One gamete is small, can behave as male gametes, and one is large, can behave as female gametes. And another type of sexual reproduction is oogamy, where the male gamete is motile and small, and the egg or ovum is the female gamete, which is non-motile and large enough. In the sexual reproduction process, the gametes are produced within gametangium. These gametes may be produced in the same thallus of the algae, then we will call it as homothallic type of reproduction, or they may grow in different thallus, which is called heterothallic type of reproduction. The gametes are liberated and they conjugate to form the zygote. And this zygote develops into several spores or the meiospores, and these meiospores again develop into a new plants. So, if we discuss about the life cycle pattern of algae, we will find diversification is also there. In sexual reproduction of algae, there is a well-known process which is known as conjugation, which is present in zygnematales group of algae like Spirogyra zygnema, where two individuals come together and the gametes are formed within two filaments. In between these two filaments, the conjugation tube is formed by which the gametes of one filament moves to the gametes of other filament, and there they conjugate to form the zygote. Diatoms are the individual organisms of the class Bacillariophyceae. they show the vegetative cell division process for propagation. But sometimes when the cell size become very small, they can enter into the sexual reproductive process. And after conjugation, they form a special type of spore, the oxospore. Oxospores are actually rejuvenescent spores of diatoms. These oxospores germinate into a new plant and the diatom population restored their original size. Now, if we discuss about the life cycle pattern of algae, we will find there is also diversification in this division regarding life cycle pattern. Here we will get haplontic, diplontic and haplodiplontic pattern of life cycle. In haplontic pattern of life cycle, the dominant plant body is haploid. That means the plants which exist in nature are haploid in nature. They produce the gametes which fuse to form the zygote or diploid state. And zygote is the only diploid stage of this organism. And these zygote divide by meiosis to form haploid spores. These haploid spores germinate and again a new plant of haploid phase develops. Example of haplontic life cycle is Chlamydomonas. Now, there are diplontic life cycles also in different groups of algae like diatoms, where the plant body is diploid. And this diploid plant body after meiosis develop the haploid gametes, and these gametes fuse to form the zygote, and these zygote develop into a new plants without any meiosis. So here, as the diploid plant body is the dominant phase in their life cycle, it is called the diplontic life cycle. Now, there are several members where we will get the haplodiplontic stages of life cycle like ulva of chlorophyceae. Here you will get both haploid and diploid plant, and both types of plants exist in nature. The haploid plant body develops the gametangia which produce the gametes without any meiosis, and these gametes fuse to form the zygote. The zygote will germinate and give rise to a diploid plant body. Now, when this diploid plant body is exactly similar to the haploid plant body, then it is called haplodiplontic isomorphic type of life cycle. But if the haploid plant body is not similar to that of the diploid plant body, then it is called heteromorphic haplodiplontic life cycle pattern, which is present in laminaria of Phaeophyceae. So, here we have seen that these algal divisions or the different members of algae from different divisions show different types of reproduction. In some members like Chlamydomonas, they actually show all types of reproduction like vegetative, asexual and sexual mode of reproduction. But in some members, only vegetative and asexual reproductions are present, and sexual reproduction is very rare like Cyanophyceae. But in some members, very well developed sexual reproduction is present, where there is also sterile jacket covering the reproductive cells like Scara of Charophyta, which actually considered as the progenitor of land plants. So, from this discussion, we can conclude that algae are well diversified group of plants which are assembled artificially in a division called algae.